Alright, so here we are again. I'm learning htmx, which is a library that extends HTML with attributes that allow us to write web interfaces in a way that I find nice, or at least for simple interfaces that I will need, that I need to write for our internal use. And I was curious to give it a try, and so I started doing some stuff. So let me show you what we've done until now. Until now, what we have is this Flask application in Python. It just returns hello world when hello is called with post. And it has an index that returns the index.html file. The index.html file is here. It uses htmx, and it has a button that you can press that does a post request to /hello, so here, and it swaps the whole outer HTML with the result of this. So basically the body becomes hello world. And I wrote a test here in Selenium, in Python with Selenium, that uses this, and it clicks the button and then checks that the text is okay. We still had a few problems. One problem is when I run make test, it will run the tests, and a socket remains unclosed. I don't know why. I haven't done anything that was not in the manual for this. We'll figure it out at some point. I'm not so worried for now. But one thing that's annoying is I'm typing this, and because of that error, I get back to an empty buffer. I can delete the buffer and go back to my file, but that's also a bit, I like not to do that every time. So I learned that in order to avoid that, it's enough to have make !test as a command, and that will not open the buffer. It runs the tests and it goes back. Perfect. So this at least simplifies my life. I don't want to make a lot of unneeded moves in my editor if I need to. Cool. So what I'd like to do now is to write the first tests for a to-do list. So I'm gonna minimize this a bit, make this a bit larger, because we are gonna work for now on a test. So what I like to do is to have test. So the test prefix is mandatory. I don't really like to use test all the times, but that's the convention. And we'll deal with it. It's okay. I can live with it. And what I like to do is, okay, so what should happen with my list? Well, the simplest thing that I want to happen is that I would like to have an empty list in the beginning. So when I go to this URL, I should find an empty list. But I don't like the name of this test. So what I'd like to do, empty list on first call. Okay. So this will be, let's copy this. And then how would we check that we have a list? You should probably have a name first, right? List element equals driver find element by ID. And this ID should be let's say 1. It's good enough. Or list 1. Let's use 1 for now, and we'll figure it out later. Okay, assert. And then I think this should be enough. Assert no results found. Okay, so now if I'm running this, this should fail. One of the tests should pass, the other should fail. Unable to locate element ID 1. Cool. So now let's see what should happen here. I would like... Yeah, so first of all, I don't like that this is not quite HTML. I don't have all the necessary tags. So perhaps... Okay, we'll ignore that for now. We'll do some cleanup in a moment. So what I would like to have is something like order list ID equals 1. Order list. Okay. Let's run the tests. This should pass. Okay. Both tests have passed. Now this is not precisely what I wanted, because what I wanted to do was for this OL to be returned from the server the moment I load. Or perhaps it should already be here. I'm not sure. But anyway, let's do some cleanups. So first of all, I'd like to do some git operations. Git restore. Okay, we've modified 2 things. Git commit. And what have we added? Empty list displayed on first call. Cool. Okay, let's do some cleanup, because I don't like how this is going. So this is an interesting example. I will just... I need to keep this for a moment, because I will not remember how to use those attributes otherwise. And not in lm click, find by element. And actually these things, I don't need them, but these ones I will, for now, I will copy them here and comment them. Okay, just some nice cleanup. Let's run the tests again. Are all tests passing? All tests are passing. Great. Gwrite. Right. Gcommit. Okay, so there are index and tests. Okay. Remove unused items from UI and tests. Okay, we are keeping some things. All right, now what I'd like to do is to make this proper HTML. So HTML, and then we have head, and in head we should have this, and here we should have body, and in body we should have this. No. And body and HTML. Cool. Let's run the tests again. Perfect. Why do people want to write more? I don't get it. Modified, okay. Add. So yeah, actually add proper HTML tags. Cool. Right, so now we know more about this. So what I'm thinking is that here what we should do is actually to load the lists that are defined on the server. So maybe I have one list, and let's assume I just have one, okay? But I should still get it from the server. And in this case, what I need to have is some kind of element that gets replaced with this. And I need to call, so here's what I'm thinking. I need to call a load method. So I will have something like, I don't know, div id equals load lists. hx post equals slash load lists, or maybe just slash lists, right? That would be a good. hx swap equals inner HTML, maybe div. Okay. So I have no idea if this works. So we'll enter now into an experimentation mode. I'm not going to focus on tests for a moment. What I like to see is how this would work. We will ignore for now anything else. So we have up.root slash lists. Methods equals post def lists return, and let's just copy for now this thing. Well, okay. And I'd like to see what happens. And in order for me to see what happens, let's just quickly remove that. Okay, and now let's go into the browser. And I think it was, no, localhost, this is the one. Okay, I don't see anything because I need an event. And so hx trigger needs to be hx trigger key up. Can I get hx trigger load? Yeah, hx trigger load. Cool. Love that. hx trigger load. Love seeing that. It's actually quite great. Okay, close that. Refresh. Nothing happens. Now this may be because it actually calls it. Awesome. Awesome, awesome, awesome. But, and this is a problem that I haven't figured out yet. I need to restart Flask for now. Okay, so this is running. Oh, come on. Okay, lists, cool. So now it worked. And I have this, and awesome, this happens. Cool, cool, cool. All right, so actually what we've done is I don't need this thing anymore. I don't need this thing anymore. I don't need this thing anymore. Let's restart this thing. And I think if I will run make test, it will work. Hey, all works. Excellent. Now the thing is, I don't quite like this. I like to see some kind of title of the list. And let me quickly check how you do Python multi-line strings. Oh yeah, it was triple quotes, I remember. And triple quotes, I'm learning blah blah blah, I'm learning Python. Okay. No. Triple quotes, and if we have triple quotes, we will need to actually replace this with apostrophes because it's easier. No reason to work too much. Okay, and let's add some, well, actually, let's see first if this works. Okay, this works fine. Let's save everything. What have I done? Okay. Any see the status, everything looks fine. Git commit apply. Okay, so what we've done is replace in use multi-line strings for easier formatting. Now, of course, I could use a library, and I'm considering using a library for formatting these things in Python, but for now, not so important. So let's see what would be the next step. What I like to do is to have, so my list should also have a header. So let's say, okay, list header equals driver dot find element by dot id. First, I mean, it's a good name. No results found. Not in driver.page source. Now I get some duplication already. We'll deal with that in a minute. Let's run the test. One test should fail. And one test indeed fails. Now I haven't seen actually. You need to read the test output, right? No such element exception, unable to locate element ID first. Cool. That sounds good. Okay, so let's do here H1. Let's do an H1. ID equals first and nothing. Okay, what have I done here? Not supposed to quit. Okay, once again, I need to restart this. I don't remember how to make the life changes apply. I'm gonna have to figure this out because it's once again annoying. Run one test, okay. Perfect. Let's also give it a content. So assert self assert equal of first list and list header dot. I'm gonna guess that is text, but I'm not sure. Let's see if it works. Okay, so that obviously doesn't work because I haven't changed this. Let's stop it. And let's say, so first, no. First list here. Start it again. Okay, and the test has passed. I'm really curious to see this. Hey, we have the first list, cool. Now, how about we also have a first element inside the first list? That might be actually good. But before we do that, let's do some cleanup. Well, first let's commit because all our tests are passing. Git commit. Okay. Add header for the first list and ideally type it correctly. Cool. So what I would like to do is to delete these lines. This test is a bit ugly, but I'm gonna live with it for now. It's only one test. It's not yet something that we cannot deal with. Okay. And I'm much more curious to see the next step. Okay, so gwrite, commit, git, my god, git commit, clean up test, remove commented code. Cool. Excellent. what I would like to see, I'd like to see a first item inside my list. So how should we do that? Let's say we find this element. Can we get the first child of the list element? Somehow. Let's quickly check Python Selenium locating elements. What I'm looking for is how to find. I can actually use a CSS selector. All right, might be an idea. Let's use, well, why not? Let's use a CSS selector. Find element by CSS selector. P.content. In my case, it would be list. Okay, let's move the header up because it makes more sense this way. List items, driver find element by, do we have by CSS? Would imagine so. And then we'll have OL of ID equals 1, LI. And then we need to close this, assert, no, self, assert equal of 1 list items dot count. Not sure I'm writing correct Python or Selenium or whatever, but this is how we roll here. We write some code, make experiments, and let the tests and the code tell us what doesn't work. So type object by has no attribute CSS. Great. Okay, then let's use the find element by CSS selector. All right. What does it tell me? OL of ID 1 li is invalid. Okay. So apparently I don't know how to write correct CSS selectors, but we'll figure this out. So Slabs has a good documentation on the CSS selectors. I'm sure there's a way of doing that. Input, yeah, I need child or subchild. Actually need this. Or we can do, actually we can do this. Sounds good to me. This is even better. Because instead of testing okay, so by CSS selector, and what we are doing is First, find element, okay, first, and then ally nth of type. I guess this will be 1. Self-assert. Let's use this again. But actually what I'd like to do here is to, so this is no list item, this is first list item. No. What is this mess? List header. Okay. First list header text. Okay. List element, fine. I won't need that list element anymore because it will be tested through this. Self.assert assert equal of, let's do first item. Oh, no, let's do just one. And first list item dot text. Okay. Run the tests. Tests will most likely fail. If they don't fail, something is wrong. They will tell me, oop, oh, first alliance of type. Really? Invalid selector. How? Alliance of type. Could it be because first is, but I don't think so. So first ally nth of type of 1. The fourth element, we can use the nth of type, which will find the fourth. Notice the 2 columns. Yeah. Yeah, so they should work. Because I should have, actually, you know what? It will be 1. Won't be first, it will be 1. But this still doesn't work, apparently. It says invalid selector. Find element instead. Yeah, but I agree. But you're not telling me which thing to use. So let's try to make this work. First question, how do we find by? It's by CSS selector. Okay. So we don't do this by dot CSS selector and this is find element, and let's run the tests again. I don't think this will solve the problem, but who knows. Alien of type 1 is invalid. Great. Just one curiosity. pipenv which Python. pipenv run Python -v. Yeah, I'm running Python 3 here, so this is not, should not be a problem. It's obvious. Cool. Exit right. Make run. Okay, guys, so what is going on here? And by guys, I mean me, not you. What could happen? I think, well, a simple thing we could do is to replace, to not do this using CSS selector. My guess is that li doesn't work. Let's see. I think the second part of the li doesn't work. So I have two hypotheses actually. Either that because it's not there, let's do first li. This should work, right? This is as vanilla CSS selector as it can be. Unable to locate element. Okay. So my guess is that somehow this Selenium library does not support the CSS selector, or is not in its full form. Let's try first li. Oh, where was it? Nth of type 1. Let's see if this parses. No, this is invalid. So apparently it doesn't know how to process these types of queries. All right. Not great, but we can deal with this. Oh, what are you doing? Okay. So we have a bit of a problem here. First, I need to change, while id equals first. And this will be first as well. So let's make some changes. This should be first list header, first list. That makes more sense. I made changes in the code without making changes in the tests. That's not good. All right. Fortunately, we can fix this easy. List header should be first list header. And this should be the text. List element by ID first list. No results found, whatever. Find element. This should be first list. This is not the first list item. This is first list items. Assert equal, and let's say 0 first list items count. Okay. I'm not sure about the counting. It's been a while since I used that in Python, but let's see. Unable to locate element. Okay, that sounds, at least that sounds good until now. Let's restart this. Let's run this again, because it didn't take the last changes. So how many? We have at least one problem, which is unable to locate an element first list li call, and that is because I don't have an li here, and I'd like to have one. And I would like to restart that, and I like to hit the right keyboard shortcuts occasionally, at least. Okay, web element object has no attribute count. So what? It returns me an element. What does this return? Find element. So this actually will return the first one. Can do find elements, and find elements will return me a list. And then on the list we can do. So let's try to get a list. I imagine find element will just return the first one. Okay. Right, apparently you need to call this as a method because otherwise it will compare the function object with the value 0. Self-assert equal first list items count. Okay, I have no idea how to do the count. So Python list count. Fruits.count. Oh, okay. There's the number. So that's completely different from what I wanted, but we'll see. List items, order changeable, allow list length. Okay, so it's .len. Fine. Works for me. And I think it should be no attribute. What do you mean by attribute? Oh, it's len. Oh my god. It's len of right? How many? Yeah. It seems to be 0 is not 1 because we are actually getting 1 back. Oh, obviously. Unlike some people would believe, the string 1 is not equal with the value, numeric value 1. Perfect. Now this thing works. Right, commit. Let's check everything is fine. Okay, so we fix IDs to CSS standard, and what we've also done is return a list with 1 item. Yes, I know my message was a bit long. No worries. All right. Now what I really like to do right now is to get first item of first list equals first list items of 0. I hate zero-based indexing, but let's go with it. Assert equal, and I like this to be, let's give it a name, item1, and first item of first list dot text, I imagine. This will fail, but I want it to fail in a specific way. I want it to tell me item1, yeah, perfect. So text is working. Okay. So now what I'd like to do is to make this item1. And let's restart this again. Let's make test, and this should work. And now we should have one element. The tests are working. Let's quickly check it out. I really want to see it. Hey! Item1. Perfect. Okay, so this is an ordered list. Not sure we need an ordered list, but we'll work with this. gwrite, no. And gwrite git commit. What did we do? We add text to first item of first list. No. Let's try this. Okay. Cool. Now, this is working nicely. Let's stop for a moment and think. What I like to do is to make these tests nicer. But one thing I realize is that if I have multiple lists, I will need this. This can become an object, right? Because I could find the list and then the elements of the list and so on. Now, one thing I'm not sure I need is this. I mean, yeah, it's nice. If I don't get the list, then it will tell me. One thing I could do is extract this. Into a method, but I don't see the duplication yet. So hey, not so much to refactor until now. Another thing that I could refactor is this thing. Right now it's a string, not great, but you know, do we care? I don't care enough at this point to add a formatting library. I don't think it's needed yet. So what else can we do? What else should we do? I mean, I'd really love to see how I can make this apply life changes. This would be a good thing. Anyway, this is where we are. We now have template list coming out from the server, and it's quite good. Okay. We don't yet have any structure, so the question is, We'll need a button to add to the list. And yeah, that will be our next step. We get this item. I'd like to be able to rename this item, and I would also like to be able to check it, say, okay, this is done. So have a check mark next to it. And I would also like to have a way to add a new item to a list, and then perhaps to add multiple lists. I'm not sure about the last part. When we go to adding multiple lists, I think we are already at the point where we have a nice and interesting enough code, right? Let's not forget the purpose of this is to learn htmx, and in order to do so, I also need an action, somehow, a button that replaces things. I managed to learn how to load stuff from the server, even on load event, and swap the inner HTML, things that I haven't done. I know how to test it. So yeah, the next step is to have an add button and a rename button and a check mark, and see how those things work, and those should get reflected on the server. So when I click on the check mark, they should go to the server, and if I reload, keep the list somewhere, right? Might be a good idea. All right, this is it for now. I think this was very interesting. Lots of new things learned today, solved a few problems. We'll see you the next time.